Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome to episode 30 of the Alec Walt Show. I'm your host, Alec Walt, alongside another very special guest, and today we're going to talk about Major League Baseball. Today was the craziest trade deadline possibly ever, and the Los Angeles Dodgers made a blockbuster move with the Washington Nationals. Joining me today to talk about that move and more is Chris Gimenez, a former MLB catcher, the former Dodgers game planning coach, and my good friend at MLB Network Radio. Chris, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me.
Alec, this is so cool. What an awesome channel you got, an awesome show. I really can't thank you enough. I can't wait to represent, my LA squad.
It's a great shirt.
Upgraded. Yes, it is. It turned out that I was wearing this one working out today, and it was unintentional, but it works out perfectly.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about that trade. Max Scherzer and Trea Turner on their way to Los Angeles. It looked like yesterday they were on their way to San Diego. What was your reaction when you heard that they weren't going to the Padres and the deal they were actually making was going to the Dodgers?
Yeah, honestly, I was ecstatic because, if you think about this, the way the trade deadline works, when you have three teams in your division that are all kind of scrambling for the same players, any team or any player that you acquire is a two-way trade, because not only are you acquiring that player, but you're taking that player away from obviously your rival in division, which happens to be pretty good in this, type of scenario where it's the Giants and the Padres. So the fact that I heard that this was a real good possibility of going through, I heard it, I saw it on Twitter, heard it right before I saw it on Twitter from some sources that I have still with inside the Dodgers organization. I was extremely ecstatic, number one. Number two, the fact that the Giants did not get this guy or the Padres, I think for me personally, it's huge. It's obvious. It's massive in so many different ways, right? Like the fact that, the Giants, could they have used, this package? Of course they could have, right? And who wouldn't been able to use this? But I think the team that needed this more than anything right now was the Padres. And the fact that the Dodgers were able to kind of backdoor, and get in there and acquire these two players for really, what ends up being good minor league talent. And I'm not taking anything away from the four kids that were just traded. They're all going to go have great opportunities, especially now that there's nobody left in Washington. So three of these four might have a chance to make their big league debut or play in the big leagues at some point this year, which is great. But looking at that, having an intimate knowledge of the Dodgers system, I love Keibert Ruiz. He was one of my catchers when I was there. Is a great kid. I think obviously being the centerpiece of this trade, Josiah Gray is going to be a little bit of a loss because that really takes away from the pitching depth from the Dodgers that they've had. That the depth has been tested so much to this point already. And losing another key piece like that could potentially be, big at some point down the line. We'll have to wait and see. But to acquire, I think the Dodgers now have 6 former MVPs on their team right now.
Yeah.
Which is stupid. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And then you add Trea Turner, who you could throw into the MVP conversation at any point in time. I mean, let's get serious. Like this, they are the best team in the National League now. I think I could stop. You probably have to stop me from talking because I'm going to gush about this for a really long time. That's how excited I am for this trade. That's how excited I was for this entire trade deadline. But thinking about how much better the Dodgers got from top to bottom, not only do you add a proven big game, big time World Series champion pitcher in Max Scherzer, who is a 3-time Cy Young Award winner. You add him to where Walker Buehler, who's probably going to win a Cy Young at some point in his career in the near future. Clayton Kershaw, who's won MVPs and multiple Cy Youngs. Julio Urias, who has been outstanding this year and was the winning pitcher for the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers last year. The list goes on in that regard. And then you add Trea Turner, who's arguably the most dynamic shortstop in baseball right now. You add Trea Turner to the fact that everybody says, oh, well, who's going to play shortstop? Is it going to be Corey Seager? Corey Seager is going to play shortstop. You can put Trea Turner wherever the heck you want. That's how good of an athlete this guy is. And the fact that you could throw him in center field, you can give Cody Bellinger, who struggled a little bit this year, a day off. You can give Mookie Betts a day off, throw him in right field. This guy will play anywhere. He is the prototypical leadoff hitter. He's hitting an average. His average this year in the leadoff spot is 301. His average this year in the number 2 spot is 313. So take your pick, whatever you want. He's going to give you a speed power combination and just add a really, really dynamic element to the beginning part of this offense, because now it's taking the pressure off of Max Muncy. Not that he had any pressure on him because he's obviously done really well in the position, but, it gives them a solidified leadoff hitter, and it gives somebody on base at all times for Mookie Betts, Justin Turner, Corey Seager, Cody Bellinger, and the list goes on. Will Smith, you name it.
I was about to say, if you're Roberts, then when everyone's healthy, because not everyone's back right now. I mean, Seager's returning. I know Betts is coming back. There's still some pieces that need to come together, but, what do you think is his optimal batting order? And to think about it, even in this order, one of Pollock or even Taylor could be on the bench. That's how deep they are right now.
Exactly. And I think, honestly, when it comes to every night when Bob Guerin and Dave Roberts get together and talk about the lineup for the next day, I think what they do is they look at all the guys they have and they just start laughing because literally nobody has a chance anymore. That's how
it's unbelievable
this lineup can potentially be. And you know what? This is the perfect boost for the Dodgers. They've been very underwhelming from an offensive standpoint this year. Pitching has been great. They've had their rough patches. Obviously, with that depth, like I said before, being tested to a very minute degree. But again, adding Trey Turner to this lineup and you get Corey Seager back tonight, Mookie Betts is right around the corner. This is going to give them an opportunity to hopefully get Cody Bellinger right, because now there is a ton of pressure off of Cody Bellinger to produce. Hopefully he can get himself back mentally and just go back out there. He doesn't necessarily have to be 2019 MVP Cody Bellinger. He just has to be Cody Bellinger, which is all the time Cody Bellinger, which is a pretty good player, from an offensive standpoint, and a dynamic defensive piece that you could put at multiple positions. But I think, it's a great problem to have an all-star and Chris Taylor potentially be on the bench, who's your Swiss Army knife, which getting him back to that position, I think, is better for the Dodgers in general, because anytime you have a position, of flexibility like that, where you can plug and play at literally 8 different positions, you could probably put CT behind the plate as a catcher and he'd do just fine. That's how good athletically he is. But the fact that you've got him or AJ Pollock, who is white hot right now, potentially as your bench options, I mean, what is there not to like about that? Like, literally their only thing to do is laugh, because now it's like, man, I got 1 through 9. Like, the pitcher, you could hit the pitcher 3-hole and not even care, because at this point it doesn't matter, because the first 2 guys are going to be on base. So you get an out, then the next 2 guys are going to hit the first 2 guys in, and then you just keep rolling it over. So that's how ridiculously rich the Dodgers now are from a top to bottom 1 through 9 lineup standpoint. And obviously it deepens out their bench so much. So now your pitch hitting options coming off the bench are an all-star in Chris Taylor, a white-hot AJ Pollock, and then you could go, you got Austin Barnes in there. You've got potentially Albert Pujols still in there, who, nobody remembers what that guy did, 10 years ago. My goodness. And then, somebody like a Matt Beatty or something like that, who's kind of a pinch hit extraordinaire, and you could kind of plug and play anywhere from first to the outfield as well. So a wealth of riches might be the biggest understatement I've ever made.
So it seems like, obviously, Turner's a perfect fit offensively, defensively, Scherzer as well. But Scherzer this season, he hasn't been the dominant ace Max Scherzer, like Cy Young level guy. He's still in a very good year. I'm not making that point, but
right.
In your opinion, what are your realistic expectations for Scherzer in this rotation?
Obviously, I think he's got every ability. He's got the ability to be the number 2. I think Walker Buehler, to me, is the clear-cut number 1. He's pitching at an elite level right now, and he has all of the makeup and everything from a physical tool standpoint to just go ahead and take on that number 1 spot in the rotation. To me, Max Scherzer is a really, really good number 2. And to your point, he hasn't had his typical Max Scherzer year. He has struck out the most per 9 of any, a year in his career, which is kind of amazing. But I think too, there is some wear and tear on the arm. And I think what this does is this, again, lengthens out that starting rotation. It really helps the bullpen more than anything, because now you're going to have a proven bona fide innings eater out there that is going to get out and give you every 5th day 6+ innings, and he's going to give a chance for this offense to make up for whatever mistake he does make. And I know his ERA is still a really pristine 2.34, and obviously that's really, really good, but he doesn't have to be the Cy Young caliber Max Scherzer anymore. He can be that next tier down where he's still a solid number 2 or 3, and then let's go ahead and let this offense make up for any deficiencies that this pitching staff may have, because I think you're going to get, an ace caliber start every 5th day with Walker Buehler. Julio Urias has been outstanding as well. this maybe even gives a chance for David Price to slide back to the bullpen, which again lengthens out that bullpen. It keeps Kenley Jansen fresh, who's kind of gone through a little bit of a rough patch here lately. It keeps Blake Trinan fresh, who is, I think, arguably their most important bullpen weapon they have. And now it gives a chance for Joe Kelly to get himself right again. And then you can go on Victor Gonzalez and so on in the rest of that bullpen. But what this does in a 7-game series, and I know we may be putting the cart in front of the horse here, but I think it's pretty safe to say the Dodgers with this trade have pretty much guaranteed themselves at least a 1-game playoff at this point, probably more like a 5-game series, because I can't see any way at this point in time right now today, without having anybody played a game today, I do not see a way that the San Francisco Giants are able to fend off the defending world champions in the Dodgers for this division. I know that the Giants just added Chris Bryant, which is a tremendous piece, but I think personally the fact that they did not go after any pitching it kind of makes me a little uncomfortable if I'm the Giants. And I know they believe in their guys, and that's great, but there's some injury history there, and I just do not see a way that the Los Angeles Dodgers do not come out on top in this division. And if you think about it, in a 7-game series, you potentially could have Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer going 1, 2, 3 games. And then you flip that rotation over, putting a Julio Urias, who has a 2 ERA himself, as a weapon out of the bullpen. And then you add in Danny Duffy on top of it, who could potentially be a multi-inning bullpen weapon for Andrew Friedman, Doc, and the rest of the Dodgers. I think it's game over from there on out.
So your former role with the Dodgers was being a game planning coach.
Yes.
If you're a team playing the Dodgers, how in the world do you game plan against this team?
Yeah, obviously that's a great point. It's going to be tough. It really is. From my position, which was, trying to figure out how our pitchers were going to get the opposing hitters out. If you're in my position on, say, the Giants, having to figure out how you're going to get out Trey Turner, Justin Turner, Corey Seager, Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, Will Smith, Chris Taylor, AJ Pollock, it makes your job extremely difficult. Let's put it this way, because not only am I trying to figure out how I'm going to get those guys out, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get those guys out with my pitching staff, which, don't get me wrong, if you're the Dodgers, or if you're the Giants, they have a really good pitching staff. And there's something that, those guys have some belief in each other right now. Gabe Kapler has done a tremendous job of putting those guys in every possible situation to be successful. And their bullpen especially went from being one of the worst bullpens in Major League Baseball last year to now being one of the best. And it's a credit and attribute to all of those guys of being, putting in the work that they needed to put into. But I'll tell you what, you make one mistake now can hurt you. Whereas before this trade went through, one mistake could still potentially hurt you if it was in the right part of the order and if all of the order was healthy. But at this point in time, once this order gets completely healthy and back in 1 through 9, making one mistake could potentially be the game for you.
So, look, you mentioned the division already. You made it very clear that you think the Dodgers are the favorite in the West, and I think you're definitely right after making this trade. Let's go across the National League. There were some other moves that were made today. The Mets added Javier Baez. The Braves added a boatload of power bats. I believe Soler, Duvall, Jock Peterson. So they've kind of entered themselves back in the race. Obviously, did the Brewers do anything today?
The Brewers added a few pitchers, I believe. They added Daniel Norris, from left-handed pitcher, left-handed starter / reliever from the Detroit Tigers. And they also added another piece, and I left my sheet inside, and I should not have done that, and I apologize, because I literally have like 4 sheets of paper on everybody, because I'm going to talk about this tonight on MLB Network Radio for 3 hours. And I have all of this stuff written down, but I'm telling you right now, that's how crazy this trade deadline has gone. My brain is fried. I could not imagine being an actual MLB insider right now, because those guys probably are going straight to the bar and, taking a very stiff drink of some sort just to ease the tension now that this is all over. But if you look at the Milwaukee Brewers, they actually added John Curtis, which is another solid bullpen piece from the Miami Marlins. Was a part of the World Series, team in the Tampa Bay Rays last year, has a tremendous slider, 94, 96 velo. That's a solid piece to add to the back end of that bullpen. It's going to, again, lengthen out, which is already a very deep bullpen, a very deep starting pitching staff. You know, this trade today that happened with the Dodgers that finally became official, you know, if this trade wouldn't have happened, I would have given you every opportunity to tell me I'm wrong. But I would say that the Milwaukee Brewers were, to me, a perennial favorite to win the National League Championship this year. That's how good I believe their starting pitching
Yeah.
rotation is. And again, if you look at a 5-game or a 7-game series, you have Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta going twice in that series, and then you add Hader in for a 2-inning piece. You add Devin Williams in. Now you have John Curtis. Now you have Daniel Norris. It just lengthens out that bullpen. I personally think, the Brewers are going to give, whoever they play in this playoff, this 5-game series, absolute fits. And I think they have a legitimate chance to challenge the Dodgers or whoever else comes from the West, to get to that and to become the National League champions. I think that's how good their pitching staff is. I'm still slightly worried about offensively for them. Trading for Willy Adames 2.5 months ago now looks like an absolute stroke of genius because what he has done for that team from a defensive standpoint as well as an offense standpoint and being in the clubhouse, the type of player that he is, I think is, it's second to none. I look at the Mets. I absolutely love what they did. They added Trevor Williams again, stabilizing that starting rotation along with Rich Hill, which was kind of a weird trade with the Rays. But getting Javi Baez, I mean, you just talk about dynamic player, right? There's a ton of swing and miss there, but this dude has the ability to take a team, put him on his back. He's a proven winner, a World Series champion. And the fact that he is now teamed up with Francisco Lindor, this is bar none the best double play combo of all time. I don't even care. Don't at me. This is the greatest double play tandem of all time. And when Frankie Lindor comes back, Javi Baez is one of his best friends. The fact that you're going to have Baez at second base, Frankie Lindor at shortstop, you can plug whoever the hell else you want. I mean, Pete Alonso is going to be at first, but throw whoever you want at third base. It doesn't matter. There is literally nothing that will get through that infield. You will see some of the sickest double plays of all time. And I think it adds a sense of credibility to the Mets offense. Even though there's a ton of swing and miss there is so much big playability now. This is the type of move that the Mets had to make. They could not just sit pat at the deadline, and they did, to me, what was one of the second best move of the day, obviously besides my Dodgers trading for, Scherzer and Trey Turner. I would argue that this move from an electricity standpoint and what Javi Baez is going to do in New York, that's the perfect place for his electric personality. Could not think of a better move that they could have made. I know Chris Bryant was connected to them quite a bit. I think Javi Baez is the best play by far.
So what's the gap between the Dodgers and the Mets right now?
That's good. That's a great question. I really do still at this point think there is a gap, but I'll tell you what, if the Mets offense comes back healthy, they get Francisco Lindor back healthy, the Mets offense is underproduced like 10 times over this year. That's how bad offensively they've been. They still have a 3.5 game lead over the Atlanta Braves in the NL East. It's because of their pitching and how dynamic that has been. Getting Trevor Williams and Rich Hill to shore up some innings for the loss of, Jacob deGrom, what it has done is it's allowed deGrom to not be rushed back, which I think you and I have both had conversations about this in the past about why do they rush him back? Why don't they just let him, give him a month? Let's get him back full healthy, because if the Mets don't have deGrom, they cannot win a series in the playoffs. I'm sorry. I don't think, even with that offense being as good as it potentially can be, and I love their bullpen as well. I think they've done a really good job putting that bullpen together. They can't win a series. They cannot beat the Dodgers. They cannot beat the Brewers in a 5-game series, or whoever comes out of the wild card, whether it's the Dodgers, Giants, or Padres. I just don't think they have enough there. If deGrom's there, completely different story. The NL this year has the potential to be the most unbelievably dynamic playoffs of all time. I mean, we just went through the greatest trade deadline of all time, but now you think about all these teams that got so much better, and the chance that these guys are all going to meet up in the playoffs at some point is pretty incredible. And that is like must-see TV. And again, obviously the American League did just as well in that fact. So playoff time in October this year is going to be must-watch TV. Major League Baseball did outstanding this trade deadline and created so much buzz. But I think to get back to our original point, because I kind of went off there. I'm sorry I got excited. I think the gap right now is still, it's not significant, but the fact that the Mets get Cookie Carrasco back tonight, who I think is going to be a huge help for them, and the fact that they potentially have Jacob deGrom looming here in the near future. I know there's not directly a timetable, but he has thrown a few pens. I think that's a really good sign. He's come out of those healthy. The fact that he's potentially, coming back, waiting in the wings there, the gap has definitely shortened without a doubt. But I still think the Dodgers have a better team on paper, at least right now, without having seen any of them play with any of their new additions. I think the Dodgers there, the Brewers there, and obviously the Mets. I think the Mets run away with that division now. And I think that's something that, they should have done earlier, but for whatever reason, they just haven't taken that next step. But this potentially could get them there.
So who do you have the Dodgers playing in the World Series?
So right now, I've actually, this is a tough one because if I don't say the Red Sox, even though I know they're just, let's put it this way. The American League is going to be incredible. The fact that the Chicago White Sox landed arguably two of the best bullpen arms on the planet right now in Ryan Tepera and Craig Kimbrell. You add that to what was already probably the best bullpen in baseball, if not in the top 3 for sure. Now, the only thing I wonder is how in the world is Tony La Russa going to butcher this? Because I've seen him, what he's done to Liam Hendricks. Maybe that's the reason he said, I need another closer because I've already used Liam Hendricks 7,000 times and I need another closer so that he can rest a little bit. Like maybe that's why they did this move. I don't know, but I'll tell you what, it's going to be, to me, it's going to be hard for the White Sox bullpen to be beat in the playoffs. I think what they offer from a starting pitching standpoint, you have Big Daddy Lance Lynn, who is one of my favorite players on the planet. Just, I love the way he goes about his business and everything that he brings to the table, from how he gives your team a chance to win every 5th day. And he's an absolute gamer and a man. And I love what he brings to the table. He's going to give you every chance to win a game in the playoffs. Lucas Giolito is absolutely continuing to be a budding star. And, you have a proven veteran in Dallas Keuchel. I love their pitching staff, Dylan Cease. I mean, they have arms out the yin-yang. And to me, good pitching will always beat good hitting. The Yankees, I know you don't want to hear this. I'm so sorry. The Yankees did an absolute wonderful job of adding who they added. If they would have just added, Anthony Rizzo, I would have said they potentially won the trade deadline just because of how much he's going to do for them in that clubhouse. Obviously, from a defensive standpoint, you now have a Gold Glove first baseman. And the fact that, I think Riz has like 15 homers this year, but he'd have like 26 if he played in Yankee Stadium. He hits lefties great. He hits righties great. He's going to be the left-handed hitter that they need. Then you add on Joey Gallo, who's an on-base machine. It's home run, walk, or bust, for Gallo. But again, if you have guys on base in front of Judge, Stanton, and Rizzo, somebody's going to score some runs there. So the fact that their pitching staff, is still on the mend, that is the one thing that concerns me. They didn't do a ton to really add to that bullpen, which had the potential to be so good at the beginning of the year. To your Red Sox, I love the Kyle Schwarber move. I'm wondering, I don't really know how that's going to work out, from just a playing standpoint. Is he going to DH? What do they do with JD Martinez in regards to having play him in the field? I love their outfield right now with Duran, and I actually really like, the right fielder from San Diego. I'm drawing a blank. All these names are going through. Yes, Hunter Renfroe. Sorry.
Yeah.
All these names are going through my head right now, and my mind's literally about to explode. But I love Renfroe out there from a defensive standpoint, and obviously he can run into one at the plate. Then you add Alex Verdugo. Kike Hernandez can now float around. They're obviously going to be very tough. The AL East got really, really good right now, too, within the last hour. The Tampa Bay Rays, you can never count them out, even though I don't have a clue why they traded Diego Castillo. That makes absolutely zero sense to me, because that dude is freaking disgustingly nasty.
Yeah, I know.
And I don't really get that move, but whatever. They obviously are very smart and very creative in the way they do things, and they obviously feel they have something somewhere there that is going to supplement those innings and those leverage situations. So good on them. You can't count them out. I mean, baseball is going to be the most wonderful thing to watch for the next 2 months plus.
It's a good time for me and you to work at MLB Network Radio. That's for
Amen.
sure. It's gonna be a fun couple months here. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an awesome time here after the trade deadline. Hopefully my Red Sox can make a little run here, but the
Let's hope
American
so.
League East got a heck of a lot better. So, Chris, before I let you go, how can our listeners keep in touch with you on social media and listen to some of your shows on MLB Network Radio?
Yeah, so on MLB Network Radio, I'm on every Friday night from 9 p.m. West Coast to 12 a.m. West Coast, now being 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. on the East Coast, which is kind of tough for any of those guys that are early risers. Maybe you have a chance to listen to us. Definitely through Twitter. I'm usually fairly active on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Chris Gimenez 5, and that's Gimenez with a G. I am the white version of, the Gimenez, which is usually kind of funny because people have made fun of me for that for years, but it is what it is. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And again, Alec, I can't thank you enough for letting me come on and just literally spew on here for the last 25 minutes.
Oh, no, I appreciate you joining me. That was absolutely fantastic. I wanted someone on this show that knows Los Angeles Dodger baseball. That is why I chose you, and I can't thank you enough for joining me.
Well, of course, it was my pleasure, and thank you again.
All right, well, that's going to be it for this episode of the Alec Walt Show. I'm Alec Walt alongside Chris Gimenez. What do you think of the Los Angeles Dodgers adding Max Scherzer and Trey Turner? Feel free to comment that below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Down the Block Sports for more of my exclusive content. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon.